What actually irks me more is when people question things like my work ethic. That is annoying to me.
I've never actually had a problem with anything or been stressed out about any episodes or interviews, but this one I really struggled with because I think there are two very valid sides to all of this.
Some people are traumatized by the negative things that have happened in their life because that's just part of human nature. When people talk about I don't know why the negative things stick out, because we evolved for that. To me, it seemed like this thing is taking a toll on people after a certain amount of time in their online creator career.
If Vsauce 2 video tanks, does anybody come after me? No. It's awesome. Kevin gets it all. He's the punching bag. You can always be the number two.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is TCU night, Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. We're live on Discord with all of our amazing patrons. Thank you so much for joining us every week. It is a joy to see your lovely avatars in our faces, whether they're your real face or some scary, horrific avatar that looks like something out of a Salad Fingers cartoon. Either way, we're happy that you're here. And if you can't make it Wednesday nights, we're just happy that you are listening wherever it is you are. The shower, a tractor, I have no idea. With me, as always,
is there a place
Matthew
we wouldn't
Tabor.
be happy? Is there a place we would be upset that somebody was listening to this show?
That's a good question. Upset. Perhaps if they were doing something, that was really important and we were distracting them from that. I don't like performing some sort of life-saving surgery.
I think open heart surgery is
That
usually
good.
They pipe in the podcast as that's happening. But I'm thinking there's got to be an inappropriate scene. You should be paying attention to the funeral that you're at, but instead you've got, your galaxy buds in piping TCU.
Yeah. Just sitting in the back of church, zoning out to TCU. Hey, if any of you are doing that inappropriately, please let us know. We'd love to hear your story. But in the meantime, we have a bit of a story that affects one of our TCU alums. William Osman put out a video this week that was a bit shocking to me, a bit of a surprise. It was simply titled, "I'm Done." And
that's right.
In it, he outlaid a bunch of issues that creators talk about, people talk about in general on the old internet. I think this is not something that is just a YouTuber problem by any stretch of the imagination, but it seems to have affected William to the point where he no longer wants to do the thing that he's great at, which is make YouTube videos. And that thing is the negative comment, the incessant kind of always lurking, lingering, and obsessing over in the back of your mind negative comment. He hit a wall with it. He hit his breaking point. And I'd love to talk about kind of what that means to you, because initially when he made this video, I was like, well, I'll just reach out to William and we'll have him on the podcast and we'll talk to him directly about this. And then I was like, I think I'd rather actually talk to just you about it, because I'd love a non-YouTuber perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, can you give a recap of what was in the video, because it's long. So for anybody who hasn't seen it, it's 25 minutes plus or minus. So this is not a 30-second, here's a thing that pissed me off, see ya guys. No, this is a pretty heavy-duty breakdown of a bunch of problems. It's a pretty heavy-duty confessional. So yeah, what's the best way to summarize that?
The first half of it is just William talking about him being fed up essentially with seeing negative comments. Kind of no matter what he does, he feels like these negative comments follow him around, and he sees them and he thinks about them way more than he thinks about the positive comments that he gets, which is a very natural thing that's not unique to William, that I'd love to get into a bit later. But essentially he talks about how those negative comments that he gets, whether they're on the YouTube video themselves or on his subreddit, just seeing them, social media, he's fed up. He's just fed up with it. And the second half of the video, he actually brings in a handful of other creators, mostly pretty much almost exclusively sort of in the engineering, although Ren Reichman's one of them. He's not an engineer. He's a VFX guy.
But it was like Alan Pan, Simone was in it.
Nile Red.
But it was,
giving their perspective, which I thought was very, very fascinating as well. Because then it ended up being not just like, hey, this is a me problem. He brought in other creators who were like, we have this problem too, and we deal with it kind of in different ways. I don't think they got detailed enough about it, though. That's sort of what I wanted to do with you, is dig in a little deeper to this whole thing. But the point is, Osman apparently is done, and these other creators who are also in the video are not done, but are also,
troubled.
It's troubling to them. Yeah, they are tired of dealing with it, of dealing with trolls or just negativity in general, or people flat out kind of lying about them. There's a lot that comes with the territory of kind of being a public-facing individual on the internet. And I'd love your perspective on let's start with, and also I want to say, if you want to get the full context of it, that was the Cliff Notes version. Just pause the podcast, watch the video. It's called I'm Done by William Osman, and then come back to the podcast and hear what we have to say about it.
We'll put it in the description. It'll be right at the top because, that's kind of what we're talking about today. So if you haven't seen it, just like Kevin said, pause it, click the link, come back, and go from there.
So where do you want to begin with talking about this, Matt? Because I mean, I know what I want to say about it, but I'm like selfishly really interested in what you have to say, because I didn't want to bring on William and just have him and I kind of complain about being a YouTuber. Like, that's not productive, and I don't think it's even all that interesting. I'd much rather hear what you think about being so affected by it, what people can do, if there's anything people can do.
I want to start with the obvious, which is telling Kevin that he looks like Jesse Pinkman. That he is the worst of the three Vsauces.
Yes.
And if I rank the three Vsauces, Kevin comes in fourth.
Yes.
You dress like a DJ from 2002.
Yes.
I'm trying to think what else has been really good. You're left-handed, which is an abomination against all that is natural.
Mm-hmm. Sinister.
Terrible handwriting because of that. I mean, you've gotten 10 years of things like that, and a lot of things. I mean, you know that in my head, I have all the good stuff that I can't actually say because I can't use those words on the podcast. But it is important for people to understand that it's not goofy insults. That's part of it. But there's a lot of stuff that gets caught in the filter that is actually pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Like we couldn't even. We don't filter. Kevin, you don't filter very heavily. I mean, as far as filtering goes, no, you do the obvious stuff that there's like a list of profanity where if a comment contains those profane words, it gets blocked. But yeah, we wouldn't even be able to read out your list, your filter list.
No. There are a lot of slurs on there. Slurs are not getting through the filter. Right. But yeah, I've definitely, I don't know how many hundreds of videos I've made over the last decade.
Nearly 500. I was looking today, and you're creeping up on 500. It's about 600 if you count all the Create Unknown stuff, and that's a lot of videos.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been called pretty much anything you can be called, and that doesn't really bother me. I guess I'll start with myself. Is that doesn't really bother me, being called whatever you can imagine being called. That'd be insulting, making fun of my hair, my mustache, physical appearance. Like,
I forgot about mustache comments. Yeah.
Well, whatever your physical appearance is That's like number one. Whatever you look
no
like,
matter what it is,
no matter what
matter
you
what
look
it is.
like, no matter who you are, what you look like, that is like target number one for somebody to say something negative about you for whatever reason. That stuff doesn't bother me, I guess, just because I don't know. Like I don't think that they're right. Like I don't know. Like okay, I don't know who you are. I don't care about you. You're not like my dad is saying this about me. That would be upsetting.
Right.
Like a family member.
Yeah, somebody
You're just
you
a
care
stranger.
about or whose opinion, like somebody you value in some way. That hurts a bit more than some goofball, anonymously doing it.
Yeah, no. What actually irks me more is when people question things like my work ethic or like the thing that I'm making isn't the thing that they want me to make. That just that is annoying to me. And it annoys me when I see people do that to other.
Bring back Mind Blow.
Yeah.
Why are you making these stupid videos now and doing this dumb podcast when you should be doing a video from 2014? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's like, or they ask me like something about that, why doesn't Michael do this or what, it's like, I'm not Michael. Like, why are you asking me or Jake? Like what, like, don't ask me about other people. Like ask them. Why are you that is just irksome to me. But the other stuff, I don't know. I just feel like I know that it's not true and it doesn't bother me. But this whole thing is literally a meme where people say, and William mentions this in the video, that you can get, 998 glowing positive comments, but 2 negative ones that just seem to cut you so deep that you ignore the 998 good ones and just think about those 2 bad ones for days and just depress you, literally put you in a depressive state because of what some stranger said about God knows what. Mm-hmm. That's a very real thing. And there are real reasons
Kyle
for
Hill
that.
mentioned that.
Right.
Kyle Hill mentioned taking some feedback really hard. And, I just remembered that we talked about this with Casey Neistat. And I remember him distinctly saying, the things that bother me and the things that hurt are the ones where you read it and think, yeah, actually they're right.
Right.
When it was valid, it really got to him. And if it's some, vague thing or wild thing, it's pretty easy to discard and process. But, when it's real, it is a different kind of comment. And that's what got to him.
Well, that's actually mentioned in William's video by one of the people who, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with, so I'm not going to be able to pull up his name from my memory bank as we're talking about this. But he mentioned that exact phenomena where it's like, I think he's a musician, and there was some comment about how he just plays like the same scale over and over again with like different flourishes and
is this Daniel Thrasher?
I'm sorry, I'm not exactly sure. But he said that type of comment was like, actually, that's true. And that is like a valid criticism that maybe that leans into like an imposter syndrome fraud kind of thing that everybody also has.
I'm really torn on this whole thing. I've thought about it since we decided that we wanted to talk about this. This has bothered me probably more than any episode we've done. I've never actually had a problem with anything or been like stressed out about any episodes or interviews. I did get nervous talking to Zach, Psychic Pebbles, because I was worried about peeing myself in excitement as we interviewed him. Other than that, it's been completely fine. But this one, I really struggled with because I think there are 2 very valid sides to all of this. Because I think of what you just said about somebody not taking a guy's music seriously because of the same scales. You know how many people who are YouTubers, other creatives, who are saying it hurts when I get criticized, especially when it's kind of true or when it's about something I made as opposed to a frivolous thing. You know how many of those people would say something like country music is idiotic because it's about like trucks and dogs and breakups, and they would rip on something like a musician whose music they didn't respect at all for exactly the same sorts of reasons that people rip on them, and they wouldn't think twice about it. At no point would they like hold back a comment against Blake Shelton or somebody who's wildly popular in country music who has songs about, getting drunk and love and this and that. The typical country music stuff. They would not hold back for a millisecond before ripping on that person. What's the difference between that and saying, Kevin, you've done 17 too many Paradox videos and it sucks?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there is a difference. And I think that is a valid thing to bring up, that we all do this at different scales, probably. I mean, not everyone, but pretty much everybody. You're complaining about something that somebody worked incredibly hard on. And if you have a large audience, then you're doing that in front of a lot of people who you're kind of, gathering at your side to also know that you hate this thing or this person or whatever. Whereas often in these cases, we're talking about people who don't have an audience, just kind of like ripping on someone who they think is detached from them and in some ways just as kind of famous or popular as some other, celebrity in a different niche. So yeah, it is weird. The one thing I was thinking about, well, there are a couple of things I'm thinking about with all of this. One is how many celebrities are not on social media? Like, a lot are not there at all. Like maybe Instagram, but like,
yeah, some light presence.
But even like someone like PewDiePie, he deleted his Twitter and he was like, I'm done with this. I'm out of here. But then you think of somebody like Tom Cruise, right? Or Brad Pitt, or like, are these people sitting around like tweeting? No, right? Do they even like have accounts? It seems like at some level of celebrity, you're not even messing around with this stuff. So no one can get to you in these sort of ways.
No, you've got somebody who's like posting, your interview in GQ or something. Like, that's it. They're just simply broadcasting really inoffensive kind of basic things from your account, but they're not sitting there pulling a John Cusack comes to mind, who, he gets in fights with people over political stuff, but that truly is John Cusack sitting there on his phone, going back and forth with you. Richard Marx, I had a Twitter issue with Richard Marx because I fake threatened him because I thought it was funny. So if anybody doesn't know Richard Marx, he sang a song that was very popular on the Karate Kid 2 soundtrack. He was huge in the 80s, and he threatened to beat somebody up, which is crazy because Richard Marx is like an imp of a man. He's not big. He's short and 17 pounds and non-threatening. He's like a walking Q-tip. And he sang like ballads in the 80s. This is the least tough thing ever. And he was threatening somebody. And so, I replied and was like, Richard, anytime you want to scrap, I'll be right here waiting for you. Because that was the name of his really popular song on the Karate Kid 2 soundtrack. I thought that was really funny and not any sort of actual physical threat. It was obviously a joke, a Richard Marx pun.
Yeah. And a good one.
But he blocked me. I was really happy with that, but he blocked me and got real pissed off. But anyway, very few people are like John Cusack and Richard Marx. That's what I'm getting at.
Very few. Yeah. So I just looked up, Tom Cruise is on Twitter and he tweets like 3 times a year to promote a movie. I mean, he's not really there. Right. So there is a thing where at a certain level of celebrity, you're not being exposed to the types of things that YouTubers are exposed to all the time, full time exposure. Like, your job is to be exposed to that stuff. So that is a bit of a difference. The one other thing I was thinking about is professional athletes. There was a professional athlete, a running back for the 49ers named Raheem Mostert, who got hurt in the first game of the season and was receiving death threats online from people who had drafted him into their fantasy football team. So people paid money to have Raheem Mostert in their fantasy football team. He gets hurt right away, is out for the season, and they're like, you should die. I'm going to kill you. You should kill yourself. Yeah. You're garbage. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
That is a thing.
I was telling somebody the other day about how much we hated Tom Brady in Boston. Drew Bledsoe was a pretty good quarterback. And when he got hurt, I mean, that was a decent team that he was on. And when Drew Bledsoe got hurt, it was like, this total zilch who absolutely sucks on paper and wasn't very good in college is going to take over. You resent the guy. You hate him. It wasn't his fault that Drew Bledsoe got hurt. But for about 2 weeks, everybody hated Tom Brady reflexively. It turned out that we were wrong. He was
yes,
better at his job than we thought he would be.
Yeah, he's been okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I just remember on campus, for like 2 weeks, it was, this piece of shit Tom Brady is going to lose every game.
So first of all, I wanted to mention, before I forget, I want to go back to the why you remember the negative stuff. That's a pretty easy one. It's a pretty easy one. Humans are attuned to danger, and you could file like a negative comment under some form of danger. It's a novel piece of information that for whatever reason you are attuned to because you think it might change your behavior in some manner. Survival sounds hyperbolic, but it's just on a smaller scale. Like you're doing something that you shouldn't be, and this person's pointing it out, so you're going to remember that. And memories are made up a lot of times of those kind of paradigm shifts that you have when somebody called you out for something, you did something wrong and you got in trouble for it. I mean, everybody listening to this can remember some sort of thing or a bevy of things that occurred when, they did something they weren't supposed to do. Somebody said, you're an idiot for doing it this way. And, decades later, you still can't forget that. Even though you forget, a billion great things probably that happened, some people are traumatized by like the negative things that have happened in their life because that's just part of human nature. So when people talk about like, I don't know why the negative things stick out, because we evolved for that. Yeah. You're not getting away from it. Yeah. It's how our brains work.
There's really no hope. You're kind of stuck with that program. Most people are, at least.
And also you're not being like weird or overly sensitive. That was the other thing I kind of wanted to throw out there is like, don't feel bad about the fact that those negative comments upset you. That just makes you a human being with compassion and empathy and a willingness to learn and take in feedback and try to alter your behavior for the better. Like that's what that mechanism is for. So that's that. Like that's not anything to be ashamed of. The question though is, what do people do about it? Like we shouldn't be at a point where somebody who is as excellent at what they do walks away from what they're doing because they can't handle it they can't handle these threats, these perceived threats from people or this slander from people. I mean, I know a creator I spoke with that we've talked to on this podcast, not William, somebody else. Actually a few of them that come to mind that have had several videos made about them that is just filled with like disgusting slander, lies, just horrible things said about these people for no reason, just because this crazy person is getting attention, making incredibly negative content, just ripping people. And I mean, how many creators that we know that are in our circles or, the outer concentric circles, that's all they do full time is rip people
I know,
on YouTube. Yeah. Like that's their job.
Some of my best friends are the sorts of horrible people we're talking about. No, it's true though. And I think that's completely valid. If somebody, somebody could make a video about why Vsauce 2 sucks in 2021. And they'd probably have some valid points. I mean, that's fair game to me. It's different when, some of the videos that I think you're probably alluding to are accusing people of things that are terrible, if not criminal. That's a problem. I really understand why people have trouble there because it's affecting what they've built with their life. It's not just feeling bad about a thing. But there can be some real damaging consequences from somebody making up, crazy lies, and it might be a funny video, but that price is too high to pay. So, and this is where really the complexity begins for me, because with this issue, there are multiple angles on every single facet of it. So there's a point at which criticism is healthy. I'm not going to go into this, but there's recently been a pretty popular video criticizing Veritasium. We talked with Coffee Break about making content that was critical back in the day. Now as CoffeeZilla, he makes highly critical content, toward people who pretty much have earned that, earned being the target of his videos. So they're running crypto scams and things like that. But anyway, you have to break down every word, kind of the nuance of it. And that's what's really annoying about this topic is that, well, what is criticism? At what point does fair commentary turn into something egregious? Is that when the community decides it's too much? Is it when the target themselves can't handle it? How do you draw that line? And I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows. That's a perpetual issue in media, with things like comedy and the rest creeping toward what somebody else will consider to be libel. It's always been the case. And that's where I get stalled on this whole thing is you can ask this really simple question. That's like, what's so bad about criticism? And then, you're getting into what the definition of the word is.
Yeah, I think we should, try our best to shelve criticism and stick with kind of what I would consider more like bullying. I think bullying, trolling.
Hey, when do my funny videos at your expense become bullying? I think it's the same, to me, it's the same issue where that's a very hard line to draw. And YouTube has had a hard time drawing that line where they made a couple of rules that are kind of arbitrary, like you can't make fun of anybody's physical features.
Right.
That's arbitrary, but at least it's completely clear. Everybody knows what that means. So the clarity is nice. But there's a whole genre of content that kind of rips on people for better or worse. Hassan Piker on Twitch, political streamer. When Donald Trump tested positive for COVID, Hassan went live on Twitch and danced around, with the crab meme, the crabs dancing on the beach.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting case of this because they had explicitly, rules against kind of wishing for the deaths of people and, all of that. And so here's a guy with a massive audience who is cheering for a very serious illness to overtake somebody. Well, and then nothing happened with him. It's hard. It's hard to draw a line, and then it's hard to figure out which side of the line every incident is on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think we're going to be able to parse that. Let me parse some other things, though.
Probably not.
One thing that is very interesting that I thought about this morning is just, I love to think about taking modern things and plunking them down into, some sort of like Middle Ages village. I don't know why. It's just the thing that my brain likes to do. And I did it this morning with this scenario. And I was like, what would this be like in, like 1200? And I thought about how permanent the slander is because of the internet. Not only how permanent it is, but how public it is. So, 700 years ago, if you had a problem with somebody or somebody had a problem with you and they call you, ugly fart face or whatever, the words ugly fart face, as soon as they're done being spoken, dissipate into the atmosphere and are gone. Okay. No one, unless you were around to hear the sound vibrations in your eardrum when ugly fart face was uttered, it might as well not have happened. Okay. But because of the internet and the permanence of these things and the publicity of them, it would be like etching like Matt as an ugly fart face in stone and putting that in the middle of town square and leaving it there forever so that everybody who ever, like generations of people walk by and they know that somebody at some point thought that you were an ugly fart face. That's a much different thing.
Yeah, I see it that one both ways as well, because, you're talking about the old kind of village mentality. That's kind of how it works in in places where the same families live in kind of the same area for many, many generations. You hear things about somebody's grandfather, great grandfather, that isn't flattering, and it kind of casts a shadow over their descendants, which is horribly unfair. But there's so little news about people. It's a bit of an apple doesn't fall far from the tree mindset, and so some of those things can last a long time. But now, in a way, things last forever, so you can always go back to them, and they're etched in this digital spot there. But they're also inundated with new stuff in about 10 minutes. There's a flow that's just like on a comment. I mean, it's not on a YouTube video, unless somebody pins it. It's probably not going to be at the top. And who's going to scroll 500 comments down to see the rude thing?
Well, that's true, but I think that at some point, I mean, all of the creators that were in William's video, and William himself, have obviously been doing this for years.
Yes.
It's not a new thing to them. They're not like in month 6 of being a YouTuber. They're in year whatever, fill in the blank. And to me, it seemed like this thing is taking a toll on people after a certain amount of time in their online creator career, where, maybe in year 2, it's like, that's a shame. I got called ugly fart face. But in like year 7, you're like, you know what? I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of getting called ugly fart face. I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I'm fed up. And that raises a question to me that there's no answer to, but I also thought about is at what point are people, this is going to sound bad. I don't mean,
we can always edit it out.
Yeah. I wonder, okay, let me do this. Let me separate this entirely from William. This is not connected to him or anybody in that video. This is a general question about being a YouTuber. And that is this, because this happens in all industries. That's what I wanted to say. This happened to me when I was deep frying chicken wings professionally as a young lad.
Yes.
After 3 years of working on that chicken wing line and going in, 5 nights a week and doing the same routine of cleaning 3 fryers before the shift starts and prepping this and prepping that and going through the shift and then doing all the cleanup and clean these fryers and blah, blah, blah. After 3 years of that, I was done. I was over it. I did not want to do that anymore. I was burned out and I needed to move on. I could not clean another deep fryer. I wonder at what point are people just over being like doing the YouTube thing at all? And I don't want to say that the negative comments are an excuse for that, but maybe they're the straw that breaks the camel's back and it makes them think, you know what? A lot of this process I'm really not enjoying anymore. And to add insult to injury, sort of in some way, the negative comments that I'm seeing are making it that much worse. So I'm done.
Isn't that a you problem, though? This is really where I start to get stuck. Like, that is something that happens because you are fed up. Yeah, like, you are in a position where... Yes, you are fed up.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it is a you problem. You're fed up. Yeah.
I feel like that's the real issue with a lot of these, because you can look at something and say, the ones who are in that video are veterans of receiving online hate. Why can't somebody say, then why aren't you good at it by now? Why haven't you developed a callus against these annoying comments? It's not that it's that simple, but that's a valid way to think about it. That at a certain point you kind of develop the skill to let things bounce off you. At the same time, other people get more and more vulnerable and worn down.
Right.
So whichever side you fall on it, that's really because of how you're handling yourself and living your life. And again, I'm not suggesting that it's easy, that you flip a kind of switch.
No.
And just toughen up.
No. Absolutely not. No.
That's not at all what I'm suggesting. But when I hear people say, so many people on YouTube or Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is are cruel and horrible, that's totally valid and it's right.
Yeah.
And if only 1 in 1,000 people are assholes, That means if you get something with 100,000 views, there are 100 people being assholes to you. That's a lot of people.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And when we look at William Osman's views, we're talking, tens of thousands who are being jerks.
Right.
But you can't do anything about that. You can foster an environment that discourages it, but you can't ultimately control what other people do and say. You have more control over you yourself and how you respond to it or deal with it. And there are a lot of ways to deal with it, whether it's choosing not to read the comments, whether it's hiring somebody to deal with the public facing interactions so that you don't encounter them, whether it's sitting down and trying to be very rational about it and thinking, I think it was Alan Pan in the video saying that out of 1,000 people, 995 are telling you you're awesome and this video is great, and 5 are telling you suck. You got to put that in perspective. There are a lot of ways to process this through delegation, through avoidance, or through developing yourself. That's what bothers me when people complain about this. It's not that I think they're wrong. It's not that I devalue what they're thinking or feeling, but I think they're not realistic about what to do about it and how to proceed.
Well, I know for a fact some YouTubers who, as soon as the video is uploaded, they never look at it again. They never look at it at all. They don't. I'm not talking about like they don't read the comments. They don't check the views. Right. They don't look at anything, man. It might as well. Yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, it's like sending like a little paper boat down the river. It just floats away and you don't see it again, man. Like that's how they deal with it. And it's, that's one method for sure. But I want to float something way more conceptual at you.
Okay.
And this is like a Kevin Lieber hypothesis about humans. And that is, maybe this is already like a thing and I'm just too ignorant to know that it's already a thing. But I believe in some ways, the people who are the best, this is going to sound so vague and esoteric. The people who are the best at certain things are also in some ways the worst person to do them. Okay.
Yep.
So I'll throw out like politicians as an example. I think a lot of people will be on my side with this one, that for the most part, as far as I'm concerned, like the people who are politicians in a lot of ways are like the last people because like the personality qualities that they have are going to lend themselves to being great politicians, but at the same time be like really terrible in being an effective politician.
Yeah.
Well, here's another one I think a lot of people will be on my side with. Police officers. A lot of personality traits that allow you to handle being a police officer. There are ones that come along with that make you a really bad police officer.
Yep.
Okay. And you can fill in whatever blanks you want there. I don't have to get into details.
There are a lot of jobs and a lot of roles where this happens. You listed a couple of them, but it's an extremely broad conceptual thing where the people who should do a thing are ultimately the ones who don't want to or aren't selected for it. Or there's, the same type of thing that can make you awesome makes you a tremendous liability.
Many managers are like this. Like people who get promoted to managers are like the worst managers. A lot of teachers. I mean, a lot of the teachers that I had when I was a kid, it was like whatever like attracted them in their personality to become a teacher also made them like horrendous actual teachers. All right. I hope that people are still on my side with this, because my point here is I think that perhaps in some ways, people who are YouTubers are the least equipped to be YouTubers.
A lot of them are.
In some ways, the people who are amazing at being YouTubers are really ill-equipped with handling that job in certain facets.
That's totally accurate. That is 100% accurate. And you can't even extend it more broadly to creatives. you could have a while back, and that would have been a slightly different conversation. But now you're talking about people who, if you're on YouTube, you are front and center, either with your face or your thoughts and creative stuff, and the audience can interact with you directly. That's a different scenario than a painter experienced in 1957.
Right.
It's just not the same thing now as it used to be. And some people are naturally amazing with that, and others are amazing with it until they aren't. They have a kind of a shelf life on it where they get fed up. Others, you look at it like I have a couple friends who I legitimately wonder why they did what they did, because they're so ill-suited to really the demands and culture of YouTube or self-employment, that they hate it. They don't like it at all. And I think, why did you do this? At what point did you think I should do it a little bit differently? Because you do have options all the way through. You can always become somebody, an assistant to somebody. You can do one portion of the process. Maybe you're not an on-screen person. That's why if Vsauce 2 video tanks, does anybody come after me? No, it's awesome. Kevin gets it all. He's the punching bag. You can always be the number two. But that stuff is valid, and they know all this, but yet they push forward and hate their lives. And I think, oh, you really never should have done this. It's not a fit with who you are.
Yeah, I just think that on some level, this is an overgeneralization, but on average, I think that highly creative people are naturally highly sensitive people, because part of the creative process is being like overly like aware of the minutia of life, like thinking too much about small details. Like that's where creativity comes from. Like I was thinking of like Mitch Hedberg, for example. I love Mitch Hedberg. All of his jokes were like noticing things in a way that no one else, like focusing in and noticing things differently than everybody else, like thinking way too hard about like a bowl of rice and then coming up with a joke saying like, I love eating rice because it gives me an opportunity to eat 1,000 of something. Now that's really a joke. That's really funny. Yeah. But you have to be like hypersensitive to thinking and your surroundings and the world and I think naturally yourself, in order to notice that when you're eating a bowl of rice, you're eating 1,000 of something, and that's funny, and no one else thinks that. Who else thought that? Nobody. Like that's why it's funny. So I do think that there is like a unique problem with like I know a lot of YouTubers. I don't know professional athletes. I don't know how they deal, because they deal with horrible criticism, getting yelled at from the stands and getting, like I mentioned earlier, death threats on social media because they missed a shot or whatever. I personally have no idea how those people handle that criticism. I do know that YouTubers get really affected by it. And I do wonder if it's this weird mismatch where they're great at being YouTubers because of that creative element, that extra openness in their personality, but they really struggle with dealing with criticism. Or I don't even want to say criticism, with just, being the butt of jokes.
Feedback that isn't positive, is that general enough?
I was going to be more specific and less general and just go straight to, being slandered or bullied or something like that. Like,
so you mean more on the cruelty side? Okay.
Yeah, being the target of cruelty. Perhaps online creators are like uniquely struggle with letting that sort of thing slide off their back. Perhaps I'm just floating this differently than like, the right fielder of the Boston Red Sox. I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're probably not as prepared for it. It's hard to experience. It's really hard to experience that as a creative. And that's what I don't think anybody acknowledges. With something like sports, as you get to the point where you're in Fenway Park and 30,000 people are yelling at you about how much you suck, you've had a whole lot of steps along the way to build up to that. You probably had a little league dad on the opposing team telling you sucked. They're just, you trained all the way up to get to the really big element of cruelty.
Coaches yelling at you constantly, probably your whole life.
Sure. Yeah. If you're a YouTuber, you make some videos. The only people who really see them at the start are your friends, and they're not going to rip on you. They probably like what you're doing anyway because they like you. An audience builds around the thing you make because it's fed to them through an algorithm that decides there's a very high probability that they will like it. This builds and it builds, and at no point are you dealing with a whole lot of really crappy stuff along the way. Eventually you get to a point where there are thousands of people ripping on you, and some of them are telling the truth, and some of them are making things up, and some of them are ripping on your wife or your boyfriend or your wife's boyfriend. I don't know. But all manners of criticism. And there it is. All of a sudden you have to deal with it. You have to encounter this thing that you have zero preparation for. And as you led with, Kevin, at the beginning, you're programmed to be sensitive to and to process it as a threat. There's not a lot of preparation for people who do public-facing stuff online. If you think about people in politics, if you're in the U.S. and you want to go into politics, you understand straight away that about half of the people in your given constituency are going to think that you're completely wrong about everything at best, and at worst, you're doing harm to those people and who they love.
Pure evil.
That's it. You're pure evil. Right. Yeah. You know that a significant portion are going to think that, regardless of which side you're on, because the other side thinks you suck. They don't get bummed out about that. They don't take it personally because it's been that way for them since they first got interested and since they first decided, I want to take this side, not that one. And then I'm going to let people know which side I took. They're completely okay with it. Well, I'm not saying they're okay with it, but they accept that it's that way and they make the best of it. Very few of them ever do something where it's an I quit scenario because they're so fed up of people ripping on them or their kids or husbands and wives, and so are those people in human terms any different than the YouTube people? No, they're probably drawn from the same populations, when you put all the big numbers together. There's no difference, but they were trained up in different ways. They encountered different things along the way. So one group is a lot better prepared than the other group. Is that a useful thing to point out? In a way, no, because it leaves the question, how do you prepare somebody to get hate comments and be unfairly criticized?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say, because it reminds me of this thing that we talk about, how old, I mean, both of us were, but, especially me being the YouTuber guy was before I started becoming a YouTuber. It wasn't when I was 15. It wasn't when I was 13. Some of the people we talk to, it's like, I started my YouTube channel when I was 12. It's like, okay, I started my YouTube channel when I was graduated college. So by that point, I had a lot of jobs. I had a lot of different bosses. I had, weirdos lie about me and say that, I had one job that I did where this waitress, she said that I stole her tips. No, it wasn't her tips. It was her change bag. She said I stole $10 out of her change bag. We'd have to bring our own change at this restaurant I was a server at.
Okay.
So you can make your own change. And she made this whole big stink about how I stole money out of her change bag. I didn't. I did not. Why would I do that? Like, I'm not a thief, okay? I 100% didn't steal her, $10 bill from her change bag.
Why would you only take 10? If you're going to do it, wouldn't you take all of it?
There isn't a lot of money in a change bag. You just have some small bills, so you can break a 50 or whatever.
That's a little bit of a crackhead accusation, isn't it?
It was weird, man. I was like,
yeah,
yo, I didn't steal your 10 or $20, whatever it was. But she was convinced, and she started telling everybody at work that I was a thief, and I stole her $20. Another job that I worked at.
Sorry, Charles Kahn just put a meme in the episode chat. It's you from your TED Talk, and it says I stole a change bag from a waitress.
I did not steal her change bag. I had another job where I worked as a bartender, and this is going to get into the weeds of like restaurants, but when you have a till, you shouldn't have anybody else in your till. Your till should be your responsibility. So you're the only one in and out of it. So if something's off, it's your responsibility.
Got it.
This place that I worked at, the freaking waitresses were in and out of that till all night, getting their own change for things. So,
oh, sure. That's a recipe for making a mistake and not knowing what it was.
Yeah. So every night when I closed out the till, it was off, and usually it was over. And when it was over, I would just leave it. Okay. I wouldn't like skim off of the top to make it even. It was over. So
Another perfect night, guys.
Yeah. So yeah.
Jingle, jingle.
Yeah. Right on the money. We did it again. I would leave it over. God, one night it was under, and I left it under because I always leave it over. And to me, I'm like, it balances out. It's over way more often than it's under. And that night, the manager calls me at home at God knows what hour, because it was after I closed the bar, and starts like lighting me up about the till being under and how I have to pay her back. And I was like, there are like 7 people in that till all night. It's not my fault. I didn't steal the money, and it's usually over. Now, probably if, I'm the person who's in charge of it, I probably should have just made good on it, but I didn't, because I didn't like being accused of being a thief once again. But
no, I understand that.
That happened. Like those type of things happen in life over the course of, I don't know, a decade plus in various jobs and scenarios and just dealing with people. That matters is my point. Yeah. Like those experiences matter. But to your point, what does it matter to tell somebody like, hey, maybe you shouldn't have started being a YouTuber until you were 28? It's like, that's ridiculous.
Right. The whole thing is an argument of accepting personal responsibility. And sometimes you have to accept personal responsibility unfairly. That till example is a really good example of this. That was officially your till. It was light, not because you stole for the 80th time, although we all know you did. That's officially your responsibility. It's low. You have an uncomfortable position. You put some money in it to make it right, which is unfair that you have to do it when it wasn't your fault. Or you deal with these consequences of getting hassled, on by the manager or the owner. So it's your responsibility to decide how you want to play it, even though you're being put in that unfair position.
Yeah. You were right when you said that, how just it was so complex and there isn't a good answer. But that's why I really wanted to talk about it with you, because there is no clean answer. And I think it's a lot more complex actually than people give it credit for. A lot more complex than people, although I kind of think that is the case for most things. But everything from, personality traits to personal experiences to how you're able to, like you said, not even necessarily like adopt responsibility, but just feel comfortable enough with the situation, I suppose, to not allow it, I guess, to make you crazy, because there's just no way it's going to stop.
Here's a specific example, okay? Because it's been a problem for a lot of different people.
Yeah.
Where they've put boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, kids in videos. And then those people become targets for harassment, terrible comments, all sorts of negative things. It shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have to think about this. It's completely unfair to think, is it wise for me to put this person in? Because it's, really people should behave. They should be decent. They shouldn't be awful. Reality, though, dictates that it's ultimately your responsibility to not put those people in videos if you don't want to run the risk of this happening. And it's really delicate. I want to be super clear about expressing this, because it can sound like a victim blaming thing. And it isn't at all. Everybody complaining about this is 100% right and 100% valid. However, there are things that you can do to mitigate or avoid a lot of these problems. Some people are very, very open with where they live. Others are not at all. They've made the conscious choice not to let people know even what state they're in, sometimes what country they're in, let alone a town or a city, or doing things like showing their house where the background might have an identifiable thing in it. They made that decision and they thought, this shouldn't go wrong. I should be safe, but because there's a chance that I won't be, I am not going to do this thing that makes me vulnerable. It's ultimately your responsibility to make those choices. If you really want to avoid some of these problems, then you have to not do the things that allows them to happen, or that makes it possible for them to happen.
Right. Not that you're inviting them to happen.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Or should expect them to happen at all. I mean, when you talk about the privacy issue, I know people on like the stark polar opposite ends of that spectrum. I know people who, film and make their location a major part of their content. I know people who go through like layer after layer of secrecy, essentially, to do everything humanly imaginable and things you probably never even imagined to safeguard where it is that they live. So, I mean,
we know some crazy things about people that if the listeners of this podcast knew some of the lengths they go to maintain privacy, they would be shocked because they wouldn't think that it would require that much effort. Some people do really crazy stuff to ensure that.
Yeah, Jen in the chat is saying that she calls her kids by code names when she talks about them online. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
There are people I know who always put like emojis over the faces of their kids.
Yeah.
That's a pretty common thing I've seen, just to not even have their faces on there.
And this is kind of funny. I mean, because I know Jen, I don't know her kids' names, even though I know her. I've talked to her in real life at length. I've talked to her online for a long time. And I can remember her referring to her kids as thing 1 and thing 2. like the Dr. Seuss thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking the code names should be awesome. They should be like Laser and like Buzzsaw.
Yeah. They should be, if your kids don't have a code name that sounds like a character in like an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Predator or something like that.
Yeah.
If he's not on the chopper with Jesse the Body and Arnold, then that's just the wrong code name.
That's a missed opportunity.
But that's how effective it is. The fact that I actually know this person and I can't come up with the real names of her kids, but I can come up with the nicknames. So it works. And she shouldn't have to do that at all. It's weird. It's strange that she has to, or any of the YouTubers have to. It's an unfair burden that nobody should have. However, it's totally reality that she has to do it, that a YouTuber has to conceal their locations. I've seen things, and I don't want to throw a name out, but active Twitter people will probably know who I'm talking about on this. Some big YouTubers have had to tweet out, hey, don't knock on your favorite YouTuber's door and tell them they're cool. Like, this is super unsettling.
Please
and
don't
weird.
come to my house.
Please don't do that. And I know it happens sometimes because the Uber Eats delivery guy recognizes you, or an Uber driver does, or just somewhere somebody does. Like that. That's fine. That's okay. But don't seek people out. Don't stalk them, even if it's to compliment them. It's still stalking.
Yeah, but one thing that I mentioned or forgot to mention, I'm sorry, is just talking about the comment section in general of YouTube and it even existing. I mean, you can turn it off. I'm pretty sure that the comment section is completely has to be turned off for all kids content. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. I think that they changed
it was
that
for a while.
So they have.
I don't know
so
if
there
it's still
is
that way.
Like no comments ever in kids, which is interesting. I mean, I think that's a little bit telling. But I mean, it's not like you have a comment section on Netflix where you watch a show and then you get to immediately, or not even watch a show. You start a show and then can like scroll through the comments of it while you're watching it and have that alter your perspective on the thing. I mean, that's a very real thing. We all do. I do it. There's so much that I get out of comments, that like good comments, that people leave good comments that either add to the video or like inform you on a thing that the video, forgot to mention. Like, it's actually really helpful a lot of the time. So there's many instances where I love the comments.
Extremely helpful. Even the critical comments, sometimes they're mean, can be really useful. It sounds counterintuitive, but like Casey said, sometimes they are true.
Wait, Austin Evans had that. Remember Austin? We talked to Austin.
Yeah.
What was it? Was this his haircut? I think it was his
something.
It was his haircut or something. Someone was like, wow, your hair is horrible. And he was like, oh, is it? And then he got a haircut. Yeah. I might be remembering that wrong, but I think it was something along those lines where he wasn't like presenting himself as well as he could, I suppose.
You could look at that two ways. You could say, here's something I'm going to be hurt by and I'm going to dwell on. Or you can say, for whatever reason, this is distracting a portion of people from my video. Is it more important that I keep the haircut I've got or that I eliminate this thing? Well, that's a decision you've got to make. Ideally, you shouldn't have to. Sometimes you can't eliminate things. We've talked about this and heard quite a lot from other places, which is girls and women on YouTube deal with different things than Vsauce 2 deals with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Austin, somebody pointed out he had a goofy haircut. He got his haircut. If you're just existing as a woman, there's not a lot you can do about that.
If you're iJustine, then you have like a handful of men around the world who literally think that you are married, which I can't even begin to imagine how she deals with that.
Parasocial to the extreme.
Right.
And that's tough. I mean, what do you do when you really should just be able to exist and do your thing? And that is what's making this happen. But it's another one of those things where you cannot control what those people do. And the best you can do is ultimately do your part to the best of your ability. And that's maybe being less social. That's eliminating things. I think too, this fits with the people getting really bent out of shape about the YouTube studio showing the relative position of your uploads. They get bummed out and discouraged when a video is 10 out of 10. Well, first of all, if you make 10 videos, by default, one of them has to be 10th.
Right.
One of them has to be 9th too. Like, this is just plain going to happen. So accept that fact. But there's actually, just a few weeks ago, this came out. There's a browser plugin that disables all the displays of those statistics from your YouTube studio. So people can go in, do their thing, work on the back end of their videos without seeing the things that bother them. I think that is unfortunate. I think that sucks. However, if that's what you need to do, that's cool.
Do it.
That's the step you've taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. To avoid the stress, to avoid feeling bad. And I was talking in a group about this last night, and one of the people was Sumito Media. Sumit. I'm going to completely betray our private conversation. I'm going to leak it. I can't imagine he would be upset about this, but we were talking about it. And he said, he just pointed out that with creative stuff like YouTube, that is you. That is your thoughts. It's very easy to tie your self-worth into the thing you create.
Oh, yes.
It's very unlikely, I'm not going to speak for you, but it's very unlikely that you put your heart, your soul, and your self-worth into every chicken wing you fried.
Certainly not. No.
Maybe you did. But if somebody ate that wing, and they were like, this is the worst chicken wing I've ever had, it might annoy you, but it's not going to make you quit chicken winging. No. It's not going to stick with you that long. But we know how long it takes to make videos. It can take weeks and months. Look at somebody like a Papa Meat, where Pebbles, these animation guys. Oh my God, does it take a long time? And as they're writing these things, many iterations of a joke, whether it's audio, whether it's verbal, whether it's visual, man, it's them. It's them. And if somebody says that sucks, you're kind of saying they suck, and that can hurt.
Well, that is what it is. I mean, they're saying, yeah,
It's valid.
you personally suck. That's not fun.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that.
So me pointing that out, that's a strong point here, that it's very easy to say, get used to it, avoid it, whatever, when the reality is that it's one of the most intimate things in your mind that's being criticized.
You have to live with it. Yeah, it's you. Yeah. You can't just ignore it. You can't just let it slide and not think about it when you get home from work. It's like, there is no home from work. You are work.
Yeah, you are work all the time.
You're always there. It is you. That's what being a creator is. So you're intrinsically
and all the
tied.
conversations. Yeah, just virtually everything in your life is tied to your job. And producer Ben pointed this out in the chat a while ago, and I wanted to point it out for him because he had to dip out for a minute. There's also a self-employment issue at play here, where all the responsibility is on the YouTuber to process everything. You don't have an HR department to refer comments to.
Right.
You can't have somebody take over your shift so you can go kind of relax for 20 minutes and get your thoughts together.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you take a day off, your job takes a day off and zero progress happens because you're gone. There's a lot on you. And it's like that for a lot of aspects of entrepreneurship. And it's tough to divorce yourself from the minutia of that. But if you're opening a store, you probably have some sense of that responsibility and what entrepreneurship is like. If you make funny videos, you probably have no sense of what this is like. You probably just made funny stuff that ended up getting popular. And all of a sudden you have tons on your shoulders, like William Osman does. He doesn't have a staff of 15. That's not a major enterprise. He's got some help. He delegates some things.
Ted Nivison talked about this, about once he got to a certain, audience size, sub count. All of a sudden he was like, I don't know what to do anymore because all of these people expect me essentially to make this like great content. And I don't know how to, live up to that. It's a lot of pressure to live up to that. And one thing that I think that is also funny, because you and I talked about this entrepreneurship or like store owner analogy, is that if you open a store, let's say you open up a pizza shop, okay, and people don't like your pizza, I guess at worst you're going to get Yelp reviews, but for the most part, they're just going to not show up. They're going to stop buying your pizza. Yes. What they are certainly not going to do is walk into your pizza shop and like scrawl obscenities on the wall that you have to look at every day about how much your pizza sucks and you're an ugly fart face. Like that's probably not going to happen. And that is a uniquely different problem that these people on YouTube are having, where people will click on your video still and tell you suck. They're not just gonna, I don't really know why. It's fun for them, I guess. They get some kicks and some power out of it.
You released a video today. I didn't know that you'd set it live, and I happened to reload the studio about 30 seconds before you told me that it was live. So I see the statistics from the first minute, literally the first minute of this video being live. There are like 18 dislikes. So there's a portion of people who are subscribed to Vsauce 2 with notifications, because that's the only way you'd find it that fast. Literally is impossible to get to that video that fast otherwise. And they're doing this so that they can immediately hit dislike. I don't know why they do that. And it's not 18,000 of them. It's a very, very tiny, tiny number of people. But that's the reality of it. I mean, that's what it's like. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was a pizza place, they just don't go to your pizza place.
Yeah, they just
maybe if it comes up in the conversation, they're like, yeah, that pizza sucks. But ultimately, they leave you alone. With YouTube, there are people who are actively monitoring you just to do something as insignificant as hitting the dislike button.
They're egging your pizza shop as soon as you open the door every morning. They're just hurling eggs at you as soon as you turn on the open sign. Yeah, but that like instant dislike thing. There was a a YouTuber friend of mine who stopped being a YouTuber a long time ago who had that problem, and it drove her nuts. There was one person that as soon as she uploaded a video would dislike it. And just that alone, it drove her nuts, man. Like she hated that. It was so like frustrating and annoying to her to know that she didn't know who it was, but she did know that somebody on this earth lived in some ways just to dislike her video every time she made a new one. And that is a weird feeling. It just
to know there's a nemesis out there.
Yeah.
To know that there's a Joker to your Batman.
Yeah. Someone who just hates your guts and can't wait for you to upload so they can thumbs you down. That is a weird, unique thing.
Dojangles says she's got one of these. Somebody who instantly dislikes.
There you go. That's a thing.
This is super common.
That's a thing.
Yeah, she says right off immediately. I don't know if it's okay. Tell me if you think this attitude is valid, that bad things happen in the world and you can do two things at once. And one is try to lessen those bad things as you take measures to minimize those bad things happening to you. Is that unfair? Those are my expectations. I mean, I personally am not terribly sensitive to this stuff. I was telling you, Kevin, like what are somebody going to say about me that I would not outright admit? We had videos in the past, season 2, around there. People commented that I was balding. Guess what, guys? I'm balding. Yeah, like, what are they going to do? Oh, you're fat? Yes, in fact, I'm 25 pounds overweight, and I look nothing like I did at my physical peak. I just accept that these things are true, and it sucks to have it reinforced. I don't fist pump when somebody points these things out. But I mean,
no, but I think with you, it's a person. I think it's a personality thing also, and a lot of degree. Like it's your personality, man. Like you don't get. You're not a cold person. You get emotional about things, but that's not one of the things that you get emotional about. You just kind of, shrug and move on, and you're very pragmatic about it. But you can't. Not everybody can be pragmatic. I mean, like pragmatism and emotion are basically opposites. Like if it hits you emotionally, you have a really hard time rationalizing that.
Yes, absolutely. It just seems like that's the only effective option, though. And so I look at it like a what else am I going to do scenario. And I don't know if that's an unfair expectation. I see a video like William's, and it helps knowing him. We're not BFFs, but he's not a complete stranger either. So I know the situation that he's in, and I feel like the only honest way to play that is to say, there are a couple things going on here. You are being criticized unfairly. The people you love are being criticized unfairly. At the same time, here are a few things you can do to avoid that or to lessen that. And it is shitty and unfair and horrible, but you either deal with that, which is bad. It's the kind of thing that makes you quit the thing that you're amazing at, or you do the slightly more palatable thing, which is take on the burden of avoiding some of it.
Yeah, but it's a cost benefit analysis. And at some point, I think that you decide, okay, I've done the cost benefit analysis in my head, and this isn't worth it anymore. And I don't think that I understand that, like, especially dependent upon your personality or like what it is that you've gone through in the past or what it is that you're going through currently or what it is that, affects you deeply and it might not affect somebody else deeply. Like I do get that. Yeah. And that kind of brings me back to this thing with, and this is just like another topic that we'll just save for, let's just start with this one at some point, is this idea of being a permanent YouTuber, of like being a YouTuber for life, of being like a career YouTuber. The YouTuber is still such a new thing that it seems like when someone stops, it's either because they were canceled for some reason that they did something that, they got in trouble for. So they had to leave, or they became, their popularity diminished because that happens to everyone over time as well.
Yep.
Very rarely do you see like somebody just John Elwaying their way out on top, or like Seinfelding their way out on top and be like, all right, I'm going to get my gold watch and I'm done. I'm retiring from YouTubing. Have a nice day. I'm going to go kick it and do something else. And I wonder about that. Especially because for me, I think maybe this is just me being too in my own head. But when I do the same thing for too long, I feel trapped creatively, like even within the creative space. Like if I'm doing like BDP number 700, it will never happen. Like I can't keep doing the same stuff over and over and over again, because at some point I feel like I'm in a box and I don't want to be in that box. I want to always explore, build new things, try out new things, have new challenges, see what else that I can do. So I admire people like, the Filthy Frank to Joji transition.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, you nailed this YouTube thing. People, think you're a legend over here. I'm going to walk away from that and I'm going to do this music thing. And there are probably a totally different audience that think you're a legend over here. That to me is fascinating. And I wonder how much more of that we'll see over the years, because in some ways I think that makes a lot more sense to me. Even in traditional media, you see that like with Rob Zombie. Like Rob Zombie made his name in music and then he started directing movies. And I thought that was really cool. Like whether or not you like his movies or not, like is irrelevant. I'm sure he likes them and he like enjoyed making them. And the guy's just an artist who likes to create things. So I don't know. I just wonder at some point if people, Conrad mentions Mystery Guitar Man. Yeah, Joe Penna also did that. He was one of the biggest YouTubers in the world in the early days, and now he's, directing big films, big movies. So there is a path there. I just would hate to see, I guess I'll close out on this and then transition to a couple of questions. I would just hate to see people throwing up their hands and getting, and walking away from like the chicken wing shack prematurely, without, I don't know, building towards some other thing that makes them happy again. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it does. And by the end of this, I mean, if you've listened to a lot of episodes of this show, you understand that a lot of this stuff is complex and nuanced and highly dependent on the individual. And this episode makes it worse. This topic just adds to that. And in a way, it means that everybody's doing it right for them and everybody's doing it wrong too.
There's no silver bullet. It is really hard to talk about because it is so personal. So personal.
It is.
But
we talked about that when we first started to talk about things like, should you read the comments? We talked about that a couple of years ago, and you get the whole gamut. It's like, no, this is poison. Every bit of negativity totally outweighs anything useful. And then you get somebody like me saying, number one, get somebody else to read the comments. Charles Kahn posted the thing about Eric Cartman getting Butters to read the comments. I remember that episode. Get a Butters to handle your stuff if you can. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's somebody you can pay if you're big enough. But that's valid. There's useful stuff in there, but some people need to have a thing in their browser that blocks it. Some people need to turn comments off. It's just a massive spectrum of right answers and wrong answers.
Yeah, but one thing I will say real quick is that try to bite your tongue a little bit if you're an audience member when it comes to being like overly annoying and critical about things. Like if the video comes out and it's not for you, just close the tab. Like there's no need.
You do have the option.
There's no need to let this person who you like, like let them know that like this one sucked. Like they don't need to hear that. They really don't. That's not constructive. It's not helpful. It isn't. It blows.
You blow.
Like they'll
They'll
figure it out.
You suck.
If it's not working, they'll figure that out. They'll know. Like you don't have to be
know.
This one really sucked, Kevin. Like I know.
Yeah.
You didn't like it.
As much as I say that stuff is valuable, I will say that I don't think anybody has ever read a comment that was straight up you suck and thought, I'd never considered that this content wasn't peak performance before. But when I read this comment saying I sucked, I really started to understand how I'm underperforming. No, I don't think that's ever happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we, like you said, we do have some questions that are extensions of this topic. Do you want to start with those?
Yeah. Yeah.
You want me to pull one of those?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay. This is, since you mentioned Conrad a minute ago, he says, as somebody who has make something mean something as a motto, does that mean you shouldn't make something if you aren't willing to put up with people seeing it and commenting on it, which I guess can include making you feel like what you made is meaningless. So it's kind of a can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen question.
Well, look, if you're going to make things that you could do the old like Emily Dickinson and like write a bunch of great poems on napkins and then die and then hope that somebody finds them later. Sure.
This is the easiest way to avoid criticism is to just not live.
Just not live. And then you won't have to hear
foolproof.
it. No, like if you're going to make things, you want people to see it. That's really like the shared connectivity of art is sort of the point. So that has to happen. I think that you should definitely make things, and nobody said anything was going to be easy and without, roadblocks along the way. And this is a hurdle. Like this is a hurdle that you have to deal with. Okay. When you make things, is that some people are not going to like it. That doesn't mean you don't make the thing. It's just, nothing is easy. Nothing is perfect. Nothing is all positive. That's life.
And if you like it, that's enough. And this is something that's too big to get into now. I probably should have mentioned it a lot earlier. But when you really are satisfied by what you're doing, a lot of this criticism doesn't matter so much because who cares? You're really happy with that thing you're doing. There are people who would drive by my house and just be like, oh, that is a junkyard, because it is. But I'm really happy with how it looks like less of a junkyard than it did 5 years ago. I am thrilled and very proud of some of the stuff that I've done. I don't care if somebody else says it blows because I'm satisfied with that thing that I've done and I've made. And I think you can get so confident and so happy about what you're making that it does lessen the impact of what other people think because they just don't matter compared to what you yourself think.
No, that's true. It does work. It does work. It's hard to get. It's hard to get there for sure. It's like a hard mountain to climb to be that like satisfied and not.
This is such a lame point, but it matters. This is so much easier for me because I'm not 17. All of this is ridiculously easier at 30 than at 20 and at 40 than at 30. Really compared 40 to 20, and it's a different story. I don't want it to sound like it's a maturity thing, because it's not that. It's just probably getting used to it and dealing with it and coming up with successful strategies to mitigate it. But I would say that to creative people who are not 40, that it does generally get easier. I mean, do you feel like you're more equipped to deal with bad stuff now than when you started as Jerry Bloop?
I definitely think so. Yeah. And that's a good point that, we should have brought up earlier, is that I do think that, creators, especially young creators, should know that I don't want to say you build up the callus, but you just gain more experience in life. And, as you get older, you just get more experience and you get used to more things. Things that are way worse are going to happen to you. And that kind of changes your perspective on some things. You know what I mean? Like things just happen in life, and it changes your outlook on what you thought was the most important thing in the world when you were 18. You look back at, you're like, oh my God, that did not matter. It mattered so little. I don't even remember what it was.
Even now, my life isn't in total crisis, but I still wish that the biggest problem I had was somebody calling me fat online. That would be amazing. I would trade every real problem I've got for that. And it's just easier to have that perspective when you're a couple decades into it.
Well, and that's another reason that this is a hard discussion to have, because somebody can just be sitting in some circumstance right now, just playing the world's smallest violin. And that is valid, man. That's valid to be like, oh, boo hoo, poor you. You know, my son just was diagnosed with brain cancer and he's going to, like, it's like, seriously, I'm being serious about this, we're taking this subject seriously because it deserves to be taken seriously. And it is affecting people who we really care about in an arena that we built a whole podcast around. Okay. That's true. What's also true is I could see people who have like way, way worse problems saying this is a nothing that you're dedicating, an hour and a half to. And I would say, it's not a nothing, but compared to name your crisis. Yeah,
sure. It's kind of a first world problem thing, where an elite group of people have enough people looking at what they're making to even criticize them. Like the percentage of people is so small who are in that situation. And we recognize that.
Yeah.
But for those people, it's completely and totally real. I don't think or care at all about what I wear. A lot of times, especially now that we don't have video on this podcast, I have been properly slovenly during recording. I like when I pick up a white t-shirt, even when it's clean, like I know which side is the front because it's got all the food stains on it that didn't wash out. If I were
for those who don't come to TCU night, Matt always wears overalls covered in baked bean stains. I don't know why, but that's what he wears. It's weird.
If I were an Instagram model, if I were Giselle always being seen at Tom Brady's games on Sunday, then what I wear matters. It's a thing. I'm going to get heat for it if it's terrible. It's something I have to think about. And that's a weird thing. Of all the problems in the world, is fashion the biggest one? Well, no, but to Giselle, it is.
Right. It is. Yeah.
In that sphere, it absolutely matters. So it's not serious, but at the same time, it's everything, depending on who you are.
That's right. That's right.
But I wanted to throw a really quick analogy in, whereas we can't really explain to people what it's like to just plain not be 16 or not be 22. Think about something embarrassing that happened to you like in second grade or maybe high school if you're old enough. There's been a sufficient distance between that and now so that weird little thing like tripping in the hallway and farting as you fell to the ground, which was scandalous in second grade, doesn't really run your life anymore. That has somewhat lessened over the years, the importance of it. And it's kind of similar in that where over time that stuff fades and that stuff lessens and it gets easier to deal with it when it happens again.
Well, that incident is why they call me Ugly Fart Face. So thank you for bringing that up. That was actually, I think about it every day. It's so traumatic.
It's a little on the nose. Yeah. Sorry about that.
You jerk.
I do want to hit another Conrad question real quick. Should William go get help from Dr. K? I know that you weren't on that one with Slush, Kevin, but do you think it's an appropriate thing for people to discuss on a very broad level? I mean, a lot bigger than this podcast. Is it useful? Can you actually get anywhere towards solving the problem other than saying like, hey, you take the steps to avoid it or deal with it a little better, and you, who's being the asshole, stop that?
That's a really good question. And it's something that I wanted to bring up earlier and forgot is publicizing it in some ways I would hope would bring attention to it and lessen the amount of people doing it. And then on the other hand, I could see it having the opposite effect and kind of emboldening people who get off on being trolls or being cruel or whatever and saying, wow, this really works. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I should do this more often. This gives me a lot of power that I can just say mean things to, this YouTuber with millions of subscribers and have them quit their job. That's pretty crazy. As I sit, in my underwear in whatever corner of the world you're imagining.
Cheeto crumbs in your chest hair.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't know, man. I don't know the answer to that because that's one of those things where
I don't know either.
That seems like it could go both ways or either way, just as easily.
This next question reminds me of something. I don't know how we forgot to bring this up. So Dan the Latch says, if the people in my computer aren't even real, then why should I care what they say? Now, that's a valid question, but it reminded me of the field day video that you made that was completely and totally about somebody saying you suck in a YouTube comment.
Oh, that's right.
When was that? 4 or 5 years ago?
That was a while ago. Yeah, maybe more. 6, maybe.
But it was, it was a funny take on exactly this situation. The disappointment of putting your thing out there and being so excited and expecting wonderful praise and,
yeah. And some idiot chomping on a pretzel.
You are the suck.
Says, yeah, you're to suck. Yeah, I don't think anybody's seen that thing, man. That thing has like 7 views and like you're 5 of them.
Yeah. Oh God, it was so funny.
I don't even know what it's called. It's not on it's on like the Field Day channel, which was a short-lived thing that YouTube did. God, I forgot it. I forgot to add that to the list of like YouTube projects that they killed after the upload.
Yeah, they did kill that. Yeah. There we go. I just put that in the episode chat, and we'll put that in the description too. But I'm trying to remember the screen name. That's right. Genghis Dong was the screen name.
Yeah, Genghis Dong. That's a good one. That's a good one.
It's got almost 200,000 views. That's pretty sweet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's churned over the years.
That's a lot more than I thought.
But that's a valid question that Dan has. Why should you care about these people who are completely irrelevant to your life? They're totally anonymous. The odds you'll ever run into them, even at a major event,
because
like
you don't rationalize it. Like you don't rationalize it that way. It's taken as if it's somebody that you know, and it's a total emotional reaction. You can't. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those things where it's like you can't shut it off. You can't just read it and be like logical about it. You read it and it hurts. I can't. There's nothing people can do about that. Like it either hurts you, I guess, or it doesn't. But as you can see from a lot of people, not just in William's video, but a lot of YouTubers I've talked to over the years, a lot of just people on Twitter, there's a meme about this. Like it just hurts. And because of what I said earlier, that we're just, as human beings, naturally attuned to and kind of obsessed with obsessing over things that we think are threatening. And then like a negative comment is absorbed that way into your consciousness, and you can't control it.
No, it's really strange too. And I want to lead this into the next question, which isn't a question. Jeff says, not a question. Just wanted to say, I love you guys and love your content. We love you, Jeff. We love the Baby Gang. We love everybody in the Discord server, everybody who listens to this podcast on any device. That's important to us. But that kind of thing, what Jeff just said, is actually more common than you'd think. We're talking about how you're programmed for negativity to be, hurt by it. You actually don't think negatively a whole lot. And a thing popped the other day from a guy named Rob Henderson, who I know some people on the Discord server follow. He talks about human behavior and psychology quite a lot. And he cited a study about emotions in everyday life. And so the most frequent emotion was joy, followed by love and anxiety, and that people experience positive emotions 2.5 times more often than negative emotions. If you asked people if they felt like their day was maybe a 3-to-1 ratio of positive to negative, I bet a lot of them would laugh.
Oh, definitely.
No, if anything, they'd think it was the other way around.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like people are so positive, but they really, really are. And it's really about how you process that stuff rather than having those negative things slam you. And it's like Alan Pan's point, overwhelmingly positive, supportive stuff, but a few things ruin it and get to you.
Yeah, they get to you 1,000 times more. I don't know. I think it's just a human thing, that it's just the way it works.
Another thing Rob said about a month ago is he cited a book he was reading, and the quote is, one study of more than 60,000 people across 123 countries found that people's well-being consistently depended on the degree to which people felt respected by others.
Wow.
The way they felt was the strongest predictor of long-term positive and negative feelings. That's a big part of the issue here, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it matters. It really matters. Maple's question is a good one after this. Do you think YouTube actually should do something about comments like these? What could they be doing now that they're not doing?
Oh, that's so hard because again, it goes into that whole subjectivity thing of criticism and bullying and what's what. And I don't know. I mean, okay, one thing I do know is that there's been kind of like this long push. A lot of people have said to change the way that the comments work to be threaded more like a Reddit. And the idea there is like the actual good comments surface and like the useless mean ones disappear. Like, I guess, more or less. Now, I'm not a big Reddit guy, so I don't know how valid that is. I could see people, listening to that and screaming and saying like Reddit is the worst at this. I genuinely don't know, but I have heard that
self-polices in a way. Yeah, I mean, that does work to some degree, but in certain subreddits, there's kind of a groupthink at play where anything that doesn't fall into line with that is going to get voted down and shut out. So that one seems tricky to me. That
but I could see enclaves on Reddit that wouldn't have the same enclaves on YouTube. Like people who hang out in this Reddit, like it's a Discord or like it's a forum, as opposed to a YouTube video. Like maybe that would surface, but at the same time, I don't know if that would. And APM is Andre is saying in the chat that make the dislike button on comments actually work. That seems like that would be useful too. Like if a thing gets a certain number of dislikes, maybe it gets buried or hidden. I don't know.
Yeah, on Reddit, you see its points are like minus 25 or something. It shows the balance of those positive and minus.
That seems helpful to me to at least allow people to say, hey, like, we don't agree with this.
What do you do though if somebody leaves a comment on a Vsauce 2 video that is very mean to you, but very, very funny to me?
What do you mean?
You feel bad, but like everybody reading it thinks it's hilarious. They might vote that up.
That would happen now anyway.
People might think it was funny.
That would happen now anyway.
Yeah. So you just, what do? Just keep the system now of like suppressing that, soft blocking it, whatever it's called?
Well, Andre's suggestion is at least allow some sort of community policing to occur where if it's not funny and it's not a good joke, then people can let that, be like, no, like you're a jerk. But as it stands right now, it can only go up. And that's definitely a problem. Like that's kind of messed up that the only way to interact with something is to thumbs it up. Like that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No, but the arguments out there about people getting dislike bombed, that's done unfairly a lot. But other people really should be dislike bombed. That's what people really feel about them.
I mean, in a comment, are we really worried about people's comments getting dislike bombed? I'm not. That seems absurd.
Oh, no, I meant more generally.
Yeah, like in a video, that's one thing.
Yeah. Because
that could be kind of like a targeted harassment campaign. But in comments?
What if you pin a comment and it gets rated like -800?
I don't know. Who cares? Then I'll unpin it.
I'm pulling up serious exceptions here. Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to do the thought process of how could this actually play out.
Yeah.
So here's one that's half this topic, half stand-up comedy to me. If somebody in the comments hurts you, can you call them out? And that reminds me of what does a comedian do when he's got a heckler? Do you engage them? Do you ignore them? Do you motion to management to remove them? What's the best way to play this stuff?
I don't know. That's a really good question. And I think that, again, this comes down to personal preference. I mean, I know that, like, for instance, I'm pretty sure that Bill Burr is kind of, I don't know if he's embarrassed of or just doesn't want to talk about anymore. That whole like Philly thing that he did that he got pretty famous for, that in some ways kind of put him on the map. That whole thing where he just ripped into Philadelphia for like 15 minutes or whatever it was.
Oh, yes.
You know what I'm talking about? He just made fun of like their sports teams in the city and their food or whatever. Because they were a terrible crowd. They were just booing like basically everybody that came out. So he came out and instead of doing his material, he just heckled them. He just heckled the entire crowd from like start to finish. But I think he looks back on that and thinks like that was lame, I guess. I don't know. So there is this weird dynamic where, and you do see this happen. You see this happen on Twitter all the time where people are like, why are you engaging with this troll? Like, why are you even talking? Why are you responding to this person who said this nasty thing to you? Like, you're in some ways sinking to their level or playing their game or something like that is occurring.
Yeah. I think it's a personal thing, like you said, that some people are attuned to go after the hecklers and others are not. But even if you do, you've got to think, is this what I should be doing? I mean, you could have a ball spending 2 hours going back and forth trading insults with somebody who's insulted you, or you could spend 2 hours working on your next video.
Yeah.
You could write the second cousin you haven't seen since you were 5. There's just every possibility in the world for what the opportunity cost is for that time. And I think you got to think, is this useful? And we see people on Twitter. I'm one of them sometimes, where, I'll just sit around going back and forth with somebody on Twitter and having a ball. But ultimately, that's probably not the best use of my time and talents.
Yes, I agree.
Maybe it is. This is our last one, and it's from Marco. What do we do, you and I, Kevin, what do we do to disconnect from the internet world and touch grass, like the kids say? And do you think it's important to do that? Oh,
here's one tip. I turn off notifications on my phone first of all, I have my phone on silent, basically always, unless I am expecting a call that I can't miss. My phone is on silent. And then on top of that, I have notifications turned off completely for everything except my business email, because business emails will come in that I cannot miss. Sure. Otherwise, it's all off, so that when I walk away from my computer, I'm walking away from the computer. I don't let it follow me around and yell at me and buzz me and tell me to look at it when I'm like trying to have dinner. Like, no, that's not happening. I like finding stuff and procuring it and maybe reselling it. I get little thrills that just have nothing to do with any of this. Not last weekend. No, the weekend before last, I bought 500 issues of a magazine called Jersey Bulletin. And that was the peak, like the pinnacle of a periodical about Jersey cows, specific breed of cows. And these magazines run from the 20s into the 50s. I had 500 issues. 500 issues from 1928 to 1959. That is exactly 500 issues more than anybody needs.
Yeah, I looked it up. I think I told you this. I looked it up, and the only two larger collections in my state are Cornell University and the New York Public Library. I'm sitting in, I got the bronze medal for Jersey Bulletin cow magazines.
Yeah, that's a dubious medal.
But it has nothing to do with YouTube. It's old. It's easier to disconnect when something is old. Yeah, I like that stuff. I like antique type things, old books. Just something that has nothing to do with YouTube or Discord or podcasting or anything other than looking at something awesome.
Yeah.
That helps. And I think that you've got to have it. It's weird too, because Kevin and I, we've talked about how important it is to be obsessed with creativity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be irrationally and weirdly obsessed with the thing you're doing.
Yes. Yes. If you want to be successful,
unreasonable.
Yes. You got to be a freak. You got to be a freak.
Yeah.
About whatever it is you are going to be a freak about, whether it's painting or drawing or making channel YouTube videos, whatever.
Yep. You've got to have that. And paradoxically, have an equally valid way to disconnect and have nothing to do with that thing that you're completely and totally obsessed with.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do this. But yeah, touch grass is a nice way to put it. I don't think it has to be outside. But you got to have something where you're not beholden to it. Thinking about it is one thing. You can avoid a bunch of stuff. But Kevin, you talked about turning your phone off, making it so all you were beholden to was being contacted in case of emergency.
Yes. Yeah, because you got to imagine if I had all that stuff on, my phone would be just shaking violently.
Permanent buzz.
Basically all the time.
Yeah. But no, you just got to find those things and the people who help you disconnect to friends. And that can be online. I mean, like, might be people you're playing an MMO with. Could be anything. I did, before we finish up, I did want to make sure everybody knew about John Swan's editing course. So John Swan, he's been on the show. He's made a bunch of excellent videos on YouTube, but he edits Vsauce 2 videos. And if you've looked at the last two, especially today's, what's the title on that, Kevin?
On the Vsauce 2 video?
Today's video, yeah.
It was the FBI framed him with science.
That's right. The FBI framed him with science. Watch that. John is fantastic. He's one of the best editors on all of YouTube, but he probably is the most efficient. He's the fastest. It's incredible. And so his Patreon now, he's offering an editing course on that. He's got, by the time this episode comes out, he'll have 8 videos on there, and he's looking at posting 2 or 3 new tutorials a week, I believe. It's amazing that he's taken the time to structure a how to edit course that is useful for people who want to get started in editing or are already deep into it, but need to get more efficient, need to get better at it. That's the biggest thing stopping people on YouTube and kind of all their products or projects is not being able to churn out what's in their head. Well, the faster you are editing, the easier you can do it, the more videos you're going to make. You know, that's really the game that we're playing. So anyway, if you're interested in that, check out John Swan's Patreon, and check out the tier that unlocks his editing videos and editing lessons. It's really a fantastic resource that is geared toward YouTube in a way a lot of the courses elsewhere are not. So you can see his work on the Vsauce 2 channel. You can see it on his channel, but now you'll be able to get those tutorials if you join his Patreon. So check that out. We'll put the link in the description.
And are we good on questions? Do we have any more?
Yeah, that was it.
That was it. All right.
Yeah, Marco got the final one.
Well,
okay. I got a DM and I didn't know. I didn't know if it was a question we'd be able to fit it in. False alarm.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that we said, hopefully, I mean, everything I can think of to say on this subject. Ultimately, you know, it is a personal thing. It is a real thing. It is a thing that happens to kind of all of us and will continue to
everybody.
And I will reiterate that, you know, if you do like creators, send them some nice messages. They do appreciate that, even if they don't remember it nearly as much as they remember the mean ones. But it's not like it doesn't mean anything. So
it'll certainly matter.
It does matter. But all right, let us know if you're listening to this on YouTube what you think in the comments. Don't be too mean to us, okay? And
insult Kevin in the comments.
Yes, insult me and my ugly fart face to your heart's content. But we are out of here. We will see you next week. Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We'd like to extend a huge thank you and congratulations to the Tots and Dumpster crew who save tiny little lives every single month. A tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders. Linus, our newest. Trevsdead, Boromir, Botdogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. And thanks to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Jen Maffasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria Marco, Sheep, Tom Videogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer Dan Yosua and producer-editor Ben Webster. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme, and to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.